The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi, you're back with me, Paul Stevenson, your host here on The Revelation Show on Revolution Radio at Freedom Slips on Monday, the 18th of July. And we have a very special guest coming up, Gerald Celente, who is the director of the Trends Research Institute and the author of Trend Tracking, as well as the publisher of the Trends Journal, widely considered to be the top trends forecaster in the world. Gerald, among other things, used to run political campaigns in Westchester County, New York, and was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate, as well as teaching American politics and campaign technology at St. John's University, among other things on your long list, your very extensive CV. Gerald, are you with us?
I'm with you, Paul.
How are you doing, Gerald?
I'm doing well. Like, actually very depressed at what's going on and around the world and across the country.
Sure.
You know, it gets to you after a while.
It does.
Yeah. You know, I've been doing this since 1980. And, you know, just to watch the same horror show keep repeating itself over and over again with a different cast of, you know, political monsters. It's just, how could people keep buying this crap? You know, whether it's France, whether it's Turkey, whether it's the US, the UK, you know, one country after another, they have, you know, the people that are leading them into more death, destruction, misery, fear, hate, and lowest standard of living to boot it off.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. I mean, I was just thinking that yesterday, and, you know, when I come to do the show and stuff, you know, I don't really want to, you know, maybe express that too much or whatever. But I mean, over the weekend, it's exactly how I've been feeling. It just does become overwhelming sometimes. It's depressing. It just seems to become an increasingly dark, and it grieves you. I mean, it just, you know, look at that incident in Nice. You know, the news just seems to be just escalating. It just seems to be, you know, I was talking to my mom yesterday. It just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It used to be, you know, it seemed to be a tragedy every maybe, you know, 6 weeks or something. Now it's in the news every, you know, it just seems to be no end to it, you know?
Well, look at the tragedy in Yemen. Look at the tragedy in Syria. Look at the tragedy in Iraq. Try on the one in Afghanistan.
Sure.
Hey, Libya was a real pleasant place. I was thinking going to Tripoli for my vacation this summer. Mm. I mean, come on, you know, look at the murder that the United States and the NATO freaks have caused around the world. Beginning with the George Bush Sr. over there that launched the Iraq War #1.
Sure.
Followed on by Clinton. Clinton was bombing Iraq every 4 days. People forgot that.
Sure.
Put sanctions on Iraq. Over 500,000 Iraqi children under the age of 5 dead. They had Madeleine Albright on, and maybe Madeleine not all that bright. Who was the Secretary of State. Anybody could Google it up on CBS 60 Minutes. And Leslie Stahl asks her, is the death of 500,000 Iraqi children under the age of 5 worth the sanctions? And this arrogant piece of crap, these elites, the Harvard, Princeton, Yale, the eating little boys eating a lot of crap and shoving it down our throat, boys, the ones from France, the same groups. She says, yes, it was. So you want to talk about the murder in Nice? How about the murder going on around the world with Obama selling all these bombs to the great beheaders-in-chief, the Saudis?
Sure.
No one wants to look at the cause of this. I want to make this really clear. If a foreign country came over to my country and killed everybody I love, I'm a young guy, say 10 years old, My mother's dead. My father's dead. Everybody I love is dead. My city, my country is totally destroyed. You think I would become radicalized?
Of course.
Well, why isn't anybody putting this into perspective? Why aren't the people demanding that? And this little crappy little ballless guy, Holland, just a couple of days ago, they had his neck out there because he was paying, 9,000 euros a month for a stylist?
Yeah.
And that's out of the news now. $9,000 a month to make a little creepy boy of nothing to look like something. He's wasted $9,000 a month. He still looks like nothing. And look what's going on in Turkey. Look what Erdogan has been doing over the last several years. Don't people see where this is leading? They're leading us. This will be the war that when they asked Albert Einstein, how will the Third World War be fought? He said, I don't know. He said, but I could tell you that the fourth will be fought with sticks and stones.
Yeah. Well, this is it, because, you're going to be looking at suitcase-sized nukes going off, and, it's just going to be a nightmare. It's just... But as you say, we don't even have to, go to the Third World War. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because when you look at the world today, there's more wars going on than maybe when there was in the World War II. And as you say, it's just absolute misery, chaos, suffering being just thrust upon the whole Middle East and beyond. And no one ever asks what's causing all this, because we know it's not spreading democracy. I personally think Israel has a lot to do with it. Saudi Arabia are a big player in it all. And then you've got the prostitute media who just, they just toe the line. They never tell the truth. They have their mouths and their pockets stuffed full of money. And they just drive the whole thing. And no one ever, as you say, no one ever asks why. What's causing all this,
Yep. So that's, so he asked me how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, well, listen, I reflect, I mirror that, because it's how I've been feeling over the weekend, because it's just hard, to get positive about anything. I wanted to ask you about this, because I think in Western media, we have a certain amount of a blackout, certainly, what's going on with Israel in the Middle East, but we also get a blackout when it comes to the propaganda, when it comes to Russia. And Vladimir Putin said recently, after he was the meeting at the Foreign Journalists at the conclusion of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Putin rallied against the journalists for their, quote, telltales and blindingly repeating lies and misinformation provided to them by the US on its anti-ballistic missile systems being constructed in Eastern Europe. And he went on to say, we know year by year what's going to happen, and they know that we know. It's only you they tell tales to, and you buy it and spread it to the citizens of your countries. How you people, in turn, do not feel a sense of impending danger. This is what worries me. How do you not understand that the world is being pulled in an irreversible direction while they pretend that nothing is going on? I don't know how to get through to you anymore.
He sums it up. That's why, I use the word prostitutes.
Yeah.
That's all they are. You summed it up when you were speaking before. They're like any prostitute. You get paid to put out for the John. And that's what the prostitutes do. They put out for their corporate bosses and their government Johns.
Sure.
That's all they do. They get paid to put out.
Yeah.
And they could care less about anything else.
No.
That's their moral level. And again, what you're doing and others with alternative media is very important. But the fact is, we need more than that. We need look. We launched Occupy Peace. The website's occupypeace.us last year. I closed down the most historic corners in America. It's in colonial Kingston, the only place where there's a pre-Revolutionary War stone building on each corner. I had Ralph Nader here, Cindy Sheehan, who camped out in front of George Bush's place for months on end. Her son was killed in Iraq. Dr. Robert Thurman, a Buddhist, Uma Thurman's father. Gary Null, very well known in New York City for his work. I know billionaires and I know multimillionaires. I raised a grand total of not 1 cent for Occupy Peace.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. And, a number of people contributed, but not enough to keep it going. And this is a real peace plan. This isn't just, oming and praying. for peace. This is an action plan. Number one, close all the military bases overseas. I said we had it in Colonial Kingston where our offices are. All the founding fathers, beginning with George Washington, a real commander-in-chief, not these little boys of nothing that play pool, play basketball and golf and call themselves commanders-in-chief and couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. This is a guy that led the troops. His farewell address, no foreign entanglements.
Sure.
Madison, Jefferson, Adams, Hamilton, every one of them. No foreign entanglements. So to honor the founding fathers, close the bases overseas, bring home the troops, secure the homeland, put the troops to work rebuilding our infrastructure. Anybody that flies into America, it's a third world infrastructure these days.
Yeah.
The train's a joke. Fly into JFK.
Yeah.
You go down the Van Wyck Expressway watt to watt. Traffic hardly moves and garbage everywhere. So rather than rebuilding what we destroy in Afghanistan and Iraq, America spent more money rebuilding Afghanistan than we did in the Marshall Plan after World War II when adjusted for inflation. And number three, Congress, by the Constitution of the United States, are the only ones that could vote to go to war. Now we're in Somalia, we're in Sudan, we're in Iraq, we're in Syria, we're in Yemen, we're in 7 countries. Obama, according to Reprieve and other groups, have killed over 4,000 people with drone strikes, innocent people.
Sure.
Congress has not voted to go to war since, you know when? World War II.
Yeah, executive orders and...
Yeah, so that's what Occupy Peace is. And one final thing, just like with the Brexit showed that the people have power. Agree or disagree with the vote, not the issue as we look at it. The issue is you had Obama, you had Abe from Japan, you had one clown after another, all the experts warning the people the end of the world would come in the UK if they voted to Brexit.
Sure.
And the people said, F you to the EU.
yeah, exactly. But, of course, you had the temper tantrums of the establishment in both the EU Parliament when Nigel Farage had his moment of glory when he said, "You're not laughing now." And of course...
What I'm trying to say, though, Paul, is that besides forcing Congress to vote, we want referendums on each state ballot. That we, the people, will tell them how to vote, whether or not we're going to war. They don't send their boys. The senators' sons don't go. None of you think Trump talking tough. You think his kids are going to go? You think Clinton's kids would ever go? Little Billy Clinton never went. So if they want war, we're the ones that pay for the war with our money and our lives. That's what Occupy Peace is about.
Yeah.
And we want to keep it going, but we can't raise the money to keep it going. People don't want to pay for peace, but they'll gladly give their money and their lives for war.
Yeah. By the brainwashing that takes us to these wars. And of course, no one's ever accountable, as we saw recently with the damning Chilcot report on Tony Blair, outlining all aspects of the lies and deception that took, which caused 200 British lives, but also 150,000 Iraqi souls in that war alone, but not to mention the knock-on effect of just the absolute destruction by some of the figures you outlined in the deaths in the Middle East ever since the invasion of Iraq. And will anything happen to him, or does anything happen to Hillary Clinton with her nonsense in America? No, as you often say, justice is spelled Justus.
Yeah, it's a neo-feudal society. This is a fact. None of the higher ups ever get called out for anything, but they clamp down on us, the little people, for every little minor violation, whether you're in business or you jaywalk. But they get a free ride for mass murder. By the way, the numbers that I've been seeing, the dead in Iraq are over 1 million now.
Sure.
And then when you add up Afghanistan and look at that phony report they just put out this past weekend. Anyway, going back, it's a neo-feudal society. There are different laws for the economic elite and the political nobility.
Sure.
The only people they persecute are us. And when I say that, look at the facts. According to Oxfam, 62 people, everybody listening knows 62 people. 62 people have more wealth than half the world's population combined. Here in America, that slaughters people all over the world in the names of spreading freedom and democracy, the gap between rich and the poor is the widest of any of the developed nations. Our gap right now is worse than it was during the Gilded Age, the other feudal society. And since Obama came into office, 95% of the wealth created since 2009 has gone to the 1%. Those are facts.
Yeah, it's disgusting, isn't it, really? At the end of the
So
day.
it's a neo-feudal society. Worldwide, you have these little cliques of the Oxford boys, the Eton boys. I want to, look at that. Remember, what's his name? Cameron, with the Eton boy sticking his penis in a dead pig's mouth. You know that.
Oh yeah, I mean these guys, most of these guys in the elite groups, they're sexual perverts, they're weirdos, they're into all sorts of satanic worship and of pedophilia and all sorts of weird crap, that these people are into.
And they're ruling our lives.
Yeah, I know.
This is what blows me away. And people will argue that their freak is a less of a freak than the other freak.
Yeah.
And you pointed out what they're doing with Russia, demonizing China. That's some job that Russia did, taking out Gaddafi, huh? Oh, that wasn't Russia. I think Sarkozy led that one, didn't he? Yeah. Oh, and France going into Mali. I want to read you something. This is from a Trends journal. This goes back to January 2013. When we were writing about what was going in our Trends journal. We said the Mali civil war, which has already turned 300,000 of its citizens into refugees, is only one of the many conflicts inflaming the region. This is after, we write this is after France under Hollande launched a strike against Mali. This is our Trends journal. It was my notice to the readers. I said, war or peace, your call. As we go to press, French President Hollande, with support from President Obama, has launched air strikes in Mali and sent French ground troops to, quote, attack al-Qaeda-linked Islamists. Initial reports claim that only a handful of rebels were killed and that the main victims were women, children, and the elderly. Quote, the hospital is overflowing. Both morgues in the city are filled with bodies. A Malian official in Govts told the New York Times. The Mali civil war, as I was just reading, which has already turned 300,000 of its citizens into refugees, is but one of the many conflicts in the region. In response, the rebels sent out a loud message that could be heard around the world. Quote, Mali Islamists threatened to retaliate at the heart of France. Today, they threatened payback, read the Christian Science Monitor headline the day after the French incursion. And I go on to write, yes, payback, as we used to say in the Bronx, is a bitch. And as long as nations attack other nations and people kill other people, the eye for the eye payback cycle will continue.
Of course, and this is why France has been attacked, and of course then it's just the whole demonization of those big, bad, scary Muslims with the beards, the long beards, and they're, let's just continue driving out the same drivel that we've all been swallowing. Thank God, Gerald, for the online community that, at least we do have a certain percentage of people who are aware of what is really going on, and that there might be, a chance in the future that some of this can be pushed back. I mean, that article I read to you after what Putin said, and I wanted to talk to you about this. It says, does anyone in the this is by an article in Global Research. It says, does anyone in the reeking garbage heap that is mainstream Western media have a conscience? Do they even have enough intellect to get what Putin is saying, that they're helping to push the planet towards outright World War III?
No, they don't. Then again, they're prostitutes. That's what they do. They put out to say what they want to be put out. I mean, look, go back. Name the newspaper, name the TV stations that sold us all these wars. And again, you were talking about the Chilcot report. You know, Blair lied. We were writing about it in the Trends Journal. We knew it was a fraud from the beginning.
Of course.
Mark Ritter, many others, were all talking about it. Everybody knew it was a fraud.
Sure.
But again, why aren't they bringing these criminals up on charges? Because it's a neo-feudal society. And I'm going to tell you, unless we do something and take positive action and people realize the power that they have, nothing is going to change. And as I said, we're trying to do it with OccupyPeace.us, because the United States is the biggest invader around the world right now, and the NATO little puppets just follow. So to us, it's stop the big guy first, and then the others will fall in line, because you can see where this is heading. All right, everybody talks about gun control. What'd this guy use? A truck, right?
Yeah.
You could kill anybody, anytime, any place with anything you want to do. You don't need a gun.
Well, exactly.
And all of this surveillance, all of this militarization, all of this anti-terror didn't stop it. And from the reports that are coming out, this guy was no Islamist.
No, just a weirdo, just a marginalized weirdo in society.
Yeah, like the other guy over here in Dallas that knocked off people.
Yeah, but this is what you're getting, because it's, you're getting all, society is so, through the media, and there's just a socially engineered erosion and degradation of the morality of society. I mean, people are look at the violence coming out of the movies. Look at these computer games that kids are playing. They're blowing people up, war zones, beheading people. How can they expect that they not to desensitize people, and then this to be occasionally acted out by just isolated weirdos and freaks and marginalized by society?
And the same thing, you mentioned it with the movies. How about the so-called music? And it's not music.
Yeah.
Rap and hip-hop's not music. It's expression, it's voice. There's no instruments in it. Music takes instruments and not computerized ones.
No, exactly. There's no
So
doubt. Yeah.
even when you listen at every one of these, and as all the thing, not every one, but the general tone of it, and your general tone of the entertainment, the general tone from all the leaders, how they're going to kill more people. We're going to destroy them. More war, more war, more war. All the war games, as you pointed out, everything is around violence. I wonder why people turn violent. I have no idea. Maybe we shouldn't do Occupy Peace. Maybe we should raise money to put a blue ribbon commission together to figure out why this is going on. Because we could really be stupid about it and ignore all the evidence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those who have their pockets and their mouths stuffed full of money are going to have to come to the conclusion that, the mad dog that is, I firmly believe it is a satanic, murderous regime acting out with its, human minions here on the earth, because this is just not normal human behavior.
Well, it's been going on. I mean, how many centuries of crazy people? To me, as I keep saying, when people ask for the solutions, and of course, I keep mentioning OccupyPeace.us, but it's bigger than that. Because to me, it's only going to come, and you were talking about the violence in entertainment, is when you reestablish beauty, art, joy, peace, and love. It's called a renaissance. And it's not going to happen in this kind of environment. And again, even this art movement, modern art, save it, Jack. Sticking a can in a pole in a garbage can with a wig on top of it and hanging whiskers from it. I got my own attitude. That doesn't take talent to do.
No, it doesn't, of course.
You're not a turner. You're just turning out garbage, So what I'm saying is the whole bar has been lowered. Look at the presidential reality show going on here, the freak show, where it's nothing more than a reality show. Could you imagine Eisenhower running for office now? There would be no place for him.
No.
So to me, it's not going to change until beauty, joy, peace, love, and true art. Because to me, and again, only speaking for myself, and the motto of the Trends journals, think for yourself. To me, art is the way of finding the true meaning of the human spirit. And everything, as I look at it, man, on the general public scale, it's art is gone. Look at the way people dress. No elegance or grace. Dead. You want to talk about a mass murderer? They killed elegance and grace.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. I don't mean to be, hard on the black community, but this whole, Black Lives Matter thing, when you've got, all this black, the culture and MTV and the glamorization of the, gang culture and criminal culture, what do you expect? I mean, if you're going to feed people crap, they're going to start producing crap.
Again, feed people crap, not only in the mind, look at the crap that people eat. I have our offices are on ground floor over here. I see them walk by all the time. As a young guy, I never saw this kind of weight problems that we have now. Look at the junk that people are eating.
Yeah. Look
at the obesity levels. There was no such thing as type 2 diabetes among children when I was a kid. And now it's everywhere. It's the UK and the US and the rest of the world is following.
Yeah, the UK, you notice it here as well, and definitely diabetes is on the up because of just, all the sugar in the food and, McDonald's and all the crap that people get addicted to. And what you have is basically you have people who are eating saturated fats all the time, and they're getting fatter and fatter and fatter, and they're getting hungrier and hungrier and hungrier because there's no nutrients in the food, and they just keep eating this stuff, but they're not getting any proper nutrients.
So again, it's a mind, body, and spirit, and again, it goes back to me with art. I go to Italy. I used to go to Italy a lot. Now, of course, I was just there this past summer. I went to that lousy Milano Expo. What a fraud that one was. But anyway, you could go onto the roof of the Duomo now. And you go up on the roof, and there in the middle on a roof, there's these tiny little sculptures, done with precision perfection by the artists that you can't see from down in the street. What I'm saying is everything that was created at the highest level, the highest element, and now everything is turned bottom line. Yeah. And so they produce crap in food, in clothing, in style, you go across the board until, to me, again, only speaking for myself, until we raise the level and make art again the presence that it had in the Renaissance, I only see more destruction coming.
Yeah, and as you said, when you were talking about Einstein, the Fourth World War will be fought with sticks and stones, because this is a very precarious situation, to put it mildly. If it's just as Putin said. I mean, they demonize him so much, but he's one of the few guys who seems to actually have a conscience, and his popularity in his own country is very high. And
I agree with you.
I mean, look what they've done to him with the if you don't play ball, well, how about you don't have any of your athletes in the upcoming Olympics?
That's right. And look, but it's so this is the level of stupidity. And again, we wrote in the Trends Journal how they set the Ukraine situation up when the Sochi Olympics were going on. Putin was away, and anybody could go online. Victoria Nuland, Assistant Secretary of State, the United States, at the National Press Club in December 2013, talking about how Ukraine is part of Europe, and they have to follow the path set by the United States, by the IMF, and that the United States spent over $5 billion to bring, quote, democracy to Ukraine. And this is while the Olympics are going on. And in the United States, every 3 days it was, you're not going to want to go to Sochi. They got them toothpaste bombers on them airplanes. Watch out for those Black Widow bombers. Oh, hey, you can't drink the water there. Well, what a terrible job they did with the hotels. One piece of propaganda after another, and it showed in the ratings. And then not only in those ratings, in the TV ratings of the Olympics, but America's anti-Russian sentiments went up to 1993 highs against Russia leading up to the Sochi Olympics. We wrote about it in detail in the Trends Journal. The propaganda was nonstop. And again, you read now, every time you read about Ukraine, they'll throw a line in there how Russia invaded Crimea.
Exactly. Absolute flat-out lies.
Yeah.
They showed some pictures of helicopters from, with a dubious source of any relevance, and ignoring the fact that those in the Crimea voted overwhelmingly to be part of Russia.
Yeah, and it was part of Russia longer than America was a country.
Yeah, exactly. But that, as I say, there's just a blackout in the. Do you guys? We have a thing over here in our mainstream media. When you get a TV, it's called Freeview, and we do get Russia Today. Do you get Russia Today in America?
Oh, I've been on Russia Today many times.
Do you get it on? Do you get it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I've been on Russia Today, many, many times.
It's a wonder they even allow that in the West, but at least it is something.
But most Americans don't know about it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering,
Yeah, the average American doesn't know about it.
Yeah, because Max Kaiser has his show on there as well, of course.
We're having a conference here this coming Friday and Saturday.
Sure.
It's called an On-Trendpreneur Conference, and Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert are going to be speaking here.
Yeah, I would have loved to have come, but you said it was full.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we filled up right away. But anyway, so yeah, I've been on Russia Today many times. They used to run ads in the beginning several years ago, a couple of years ago, with they'd have me on and then Henry Kissinger, me saying yeah, so I used to be on there a lot.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I just wonder sometimes, how there is such a blackout.
But it's again, the station's like 207. You got to find it to know it.
Yeah, and it's I suppose, and the mainstream, the Fox and the ABC and the CNN would probably, people are so brainwashed that they probably would be scared to believe a single word that came out of it anyway.
Yeah.
So precarious times. You have always, one of the phrases that stuck with me. You've always said trade wars, currency wars, and then world war. Now we're seeing the trade wars and the currency wars. It seems to me. I've for a while now with this whole big World War III thing's been talked about. It does seem to me, Gerald. When you look at history and how the First and the Second World War lined up, there seems to be there's parallels going on.
Oh,
obvious parallels. Do we see this happening with a Russia, Chinese, Iranian alliance against the U.S. Western NATO forces, or how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I see that. I see exactly that. And because the Russians and Chinese, they know what's going on, and so do the Iranians. And if anybody thinks the Russians, Chinese, and Iranians are going anywhere, let's make this. Let's get this straight. America hasn't won a war since World War II. They can't win in Iraq or Afghanistan. All they could do is destroy countries, but they can't claim victory. When Napoleon left Poland with 423,000 troops to invade Moscow, came back with 10,000. Yeah. Hitler launched the largest military offensive in world history against Russia, and they lost. What makes anybody think that they're going to beat Russia? Yeah,
well, this is why it's very concerning. As I say, in a similar article about this whole NATO presence on the Russian border, there was protests there in Warsaw. It's basically said, Yankees go home and stop NATO, stop the war. There was over 300 protesters basically protesting against the whole NATO presence on the Russian border. And you have to say, it is genuinely concerning. It's one thing talking about what might happen, but when you see this, not only this sort of rhetoric and propaganda against Putin, but when you see NATO bases lining up on the border of Russia, they're obviously preparing for something, as I see it.
Yeah, and again, this is in violation of the agreement that was made when the Soviet Union was dismantled. It was that they would give back Eastern Germany to Germany, and that NATO would not expand beyond where it was. And then Bill Clinton came in and broke that agreement, and then Bush broke it more, and so has Obama. So NATO just keeps expanding against the agreement that was made. And that's what Putin said, when they broke up the Soviet Union, it was, the worst things that could have happened.
Yeah.
And it was true, because he had the two powers, and it prevented war. Because nobody would, it was, look what happened with, could you imagine Kennedy, they threatened war against Russia for putting missile systems in Cuba, and now Obama's put them on in Romania, they're putting them in Poland, and they have them in Turkey already. That was the other issue. And then, of course, they're doing what? These maneuvers with 40,000, 50,000 troops on Russia's borders. They're bringing in American naval vessels and into the Baltic Sea near naval ports near Russia. They're doing the same thing with Obama's pivot to Asia, going into close to naval bases in China. And then you see the headlines read, Chinese jets threaten, What do you mean threaten? What are you doing over there?
Yeah. The U.S. defense, as they call it, budget, $569 billion a year, recent figures. The not really close second was China at 190.9. Russia way down at 53.2. But yeah, Russia is the big bad enemy that we must all fear. There's 800 U.S. military bases, Gerald, in more than 70 countries at the minute, which at a cost to the American taxpayer, 85 to 100 billion per year conservative just for bases and troops, and 160 to 200 billion in war zones for bases and troops. So as you say, that when you can't raise a penny for Occupy Peace, but think how much you could do with that sort of money for good,
Oh, and by the way, that number that you gave, actually it's over $1 trillion for defense when you put in, all the black ops and everything else that they don't put in the other war budgets. It's well over $1 trillion for defense budget.
Yeah, and where's the church? Where's the church?
Oh yeah, lockjaw. Nobody talks about. I'm telling you, peace is not popular.
No.
I without mentioning the name because I don't want to do it. His father's one of the wealthiest people in the world, and I know him, firsthand, and not a penny for peace.
This is someone who you were trying to
raise money. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who it is. I rent them one of my buildings. Warren Buffett's son, Peter Buffett.
Right.
And I had him here with Ralph Nader, and I asked him for money to keep it going. He blew me off.
So is Occupy Peace actually sort of it's collapsed now? Then has it?
Well, it hasn't collapsed, but we need more money to keep it going.
Yeah.
I took out a lot of money out of my retirement account to make that happen last time.
Right. Wow.
And to me, the only way that it's going to happen to change this is, you mentioned what, 300 people showed up as a demonstration in Warsaw? That's nothing. They blow them right off.
No, of course, yeah.
But if you had 300,000 people show up, now we have a different story. Look how the Berlin Wall fell. Hundreds of thousands took to the streets and they never left.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to take. And the people don't realize the power that they have. But we're not united in a cause. And that's what I'm looking to try to do, is to unite us under one umbrella. There's a wonderful saying from Samuel Adams, of course, one of the founding fathers. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men.
Mm. Yeah, and this is exactly what it's always been that way in history, and I'm sure it'll continue to be that way. But
again, look at Brexit. Brexit showed it was a majority that prevailed.
Yeah.
We can do it. We need to rally around a cause.
Well, I mean, it's blowing a hole in it because the Brexit, because you've had the Five-Star Party in Italy, as I'm sure you're aware, and then you've got the National Front, Marine Le Pen, and you've got the Danish People's Party, and they're all basically saying, Marine Le Pen said, I would have voted for Brexit. France has 1,000 more reasons to leave the UK or leave than the UK because we have the euro and the Schengen, and it's just right across Europe. So they must be fearing the end of their little facade in the EU, because I mean, essentially what it means is the loss of sovereignty of nations. So the UK, people talk about the economy. A lot of people in this country, it's about their identity. It's not, they always have to refer everything back to money, because most people, I think, the millennials, as they like to talk about, who are up in arms about all this, and they are just unwitting pawns and all this. So I mean, you have marches, Gerald, in London where the students and the lefties are out marching against the Brexit. So they're unwitting pawns now. Who would have thought that this is the future, where you have them protesting, so that they can let us back into the, it's just, I mean, these people like to think they're sort of social justice trailblazers. And I mean, it's so depressing because, and they even were, calling for, well, the older people's votes shouldn't count so much. These are the same older people's votes who fought in wars for the freedom of these same people who are pro-establishment. It's depressing,
Yeah, I know. I was surprised at the millennial. Well, again, I'm not surprised because they have no point of reference.
They're brainwashed, but a lot of these degrees that they do are, I've spoken to these people, and they'll have diversity degrees and immigrants assimilation degrees and obstacles of racism, and it's all social engineered brainwashing, and they are unwitting participants in the conspiracy, and they call it progress.
I agree with you. Again, the future's in our hands. And unless the people unite, again, you show me one cause for all of us to unite for, and I'm for it. Occupy peace isn't about me. And to me, that is the only, and I've been around a long time. I was prime draft bait during the Vietnam War. This is the only peace program I've ever seen with an action plan. And we've reached out to all the other peace organizations. What happens is people, they're caught up in their own ego trip. They haven't been successful. Could we add that up? They have not been successful. So if you want to continue down the road of failure, and you got your ego in your way, guess what? Your ego's not going to stop a bomb dropping on your head.
Yeah.
So all these peace groups, we got support from none of them.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, and by the way, we sent out over 350,000 press releases to the media over a course of a month. Wow. Not one piece of coverage. And again, I had Ralph Nader here. I had Cindy Sheehan, Dr. Robert Thurman, Gary Noe, in the most historic four corners in America.
It's actually staggering, isn't it? That
yes.
And you've got a fair good presence on, on shows like this. I keep a track of of your interviews and stuff like that, and it's staggering and depressing to think that you haven't had any support for it. To the point that it's under threat, even.
Well, again, if we don't have a movement, Paul, we don't have anything to fight with. We have to organize all of us in one movement. I see it. And if somebody could come up with a better one, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But we're not going anywhere if we stay fragmented.
No. Yeah, it's a divide and conquer job, isn't it?
Exactly.
And it's the same in the Middle East as well. The whole fragment and the whole breakup of the whole, Middle East, the destabilizing of the Middle East means it's easier to conquer because you get all these little sectarian groups everywhere, and it's just wolves picking off the straying sheep,
That's right.
Just very quickly, Gerald, are you still you still predicting a Trump White House, or how do you see there? I mean, there's all sorts of wild cards going on.
Well, we were, but this guy that he picked, this guy Pence, it couldn't have been a dumber selection.
Yeah.
So we're not as, I have to say, after that, we're not as confident. That was really a terrible pick.
Well, what motivated that to try and appeal to to move back into the center, do you think?
No, he should have picked somebody that was more progressive to balance it out, in the sense that by what he's done is now he's going to, when you got a guy that comes out anti-abortion, anti-gay, lesbian, all this, what that's going to do is the people that wouldn't have gone out to vote for Hillary, because her totals in this primaries of her vote count are way off from when she ran against Obama in 2008. So what this is going to do by bringing Pence in is it's going to spur those people that wouldn't have normally gone out to vote for her.
Yeah.
Now it's giving them a cause to go to vote.
Yeah, it's difficult to see what his motivation was there, isn't it?
Well, it was dumb. Well, Trump isn't a very bright guy.
Nah, I was going to say, I have to say, I mean, I think some of his, his rallies have become a little bit boring to listen to. It's the same old stuff.
Yeah, and again, this is a guy like we say, where I grew up, a guy born on third base and thought he hit a home run. His old man left him, beat the family. It's there on Wikipedia. Almost $400 million.
Yeah.
And, this guy, this guy was such a jerk. When I was a young kid, and believe me, they couldn't tie me. I ran across the Boston Post Road in the Bronx. I escaped kindergarten at 4.5 years old. I mean, they couldn't tie me down. The greatest threat that my parents, may their souls rest in peace, used to give at my brothers and I: we're going to send you to military school. We were so out of control, they couldn't control us. They'd send us to military. We're going to go to military school. That was the great threat. Trump was so out of control, they actually sent him to military school.
Yeah, he went there.
Now, just think about it. A young kid in your teens, what do you think about? Girls and sports.
Yeah, music.
Now, here you are in a little uniform in upstate New York in the middle of nowhere. Make your bed with the right corners. Stand and salute. And not eating my mother's food every day, a great Italian chef, and eating this garbage at a military school. Trump was so out of control, such an egomaniac, they had to send him away to military school.
Oh, I know. And as I say, I mean, I'm starting to think that, there's just a certain amount of, lack of nous might threaten his campaign. As I say, I don't really see the logic in that appointment. And, and also, I mean, he's lacking funding, isn't he? I mean, he's not really, when you look at the sort of money that, and that he's up against with the Clinton machine, he needs more money, I think, invested in his campaign if he's going to, otherwise I think he's just going to run out of steam with this whole thing,
Yeah, you're right. But again, there are so many wild cards out there.
Do you think it's
yeah, sorry. No, I'm just going to say, just like what happened, with whether it was in Nice or in Turkey this past weekend, the wild cards are always dealt.
Do you think, I think it was Alex Jones who reckons that, it's possible that Obama might even, there'll be so much chaos and false flags and media created events that Obama may even call off the election. So he'll have
a I don't see that happening.
Nah, but
it could happen, but I haven't been in that camp. I've been hearing that for 3 years.
Because my concern is if we have Hillary Clinton in the White House, it's just going to be another step towards all-out World War III and chaos. And the world just can't afford to have another world war with the sorts of weapons that are going to be used.
I know. Look, my campaign slogan for 2016: Trump or Clinton, Hitler or Hitlery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, you're talking about the weapons being used. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I was a keynote speaker a number of years ago at Virginia Military Institute, and they brought me down there. Which I met General Anthony Zinni, too. He was the #2 in command of the first Gulf War.
Right.
To talk about New Millennium Warfare.
Yeah.
So I'd written the book Trends 2000. And I said, it's going to be suitcase bombs, dirty bombs, suitcase nukes, biological warfare. It's a whole different game. The battleships and all this stuff that they're building are obsolete. Is all obsolete weaponry.
Yeah, exactly. As I say, I mean, I'm not surprised that Putin is pulling his hair out, because they just keep poking him. They just keep poking him. And as I say, anybody who thinks that it's not a political move and an attack on Russia with the whole, it's a disgrace banning all of their athletes, from the Olympics. But, obviously there's worse problems in the world, but it's just another indicator of the demonization of Putin, And I mean, how do you see it, just very quickly, how do you see the current Syria situation? Because obviously, the West want to get Assad out of there, like they've done with Gaddafi and like they've done with Saddam Hussein. But they're obviously having problems there. I don't think they're going to be able to manage it. And are they going to, is this going to be another precursor to World War by, if they can't get Assad out of there, let's just get a war going?
Well, that the guy that I think was playing Frankenstein before he became Secretary of State, Kerry.
Yeah.
He was over there meeting with Lavrov this past week on Syria.
Skull and Bones Kerry from I think it's Harvard.
Yeah, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. That's my slogan. Anyway, and the facts are there, beginning with Woodrow Wilson, the president of Harvard. Woodrow Wilson, the president of Princeton.
Yeah.
That took us into World War I after that war was over, and made it the bloody mess that it continued to be.
Yeah.
And it gave us the Federal Reserve, and just keeps going on with these Harvard, Princeton, Yale boys. But anyway, the United States knows that it's a losing situation in Syria. And now with Turkey on the edge, I think it's either Turkey's going to pull out or they're going to escalate and out of Syria. And of course, Turkey, along with the Arab League, was very responsible for instigating this whole overthrow of Assad to begin with. I think that we might see a downscale of the war in Syria with this meeting with Kerry, because they're not reporting a lot on what was said. So I'm being left with the impression that the reason they're not doing that is because some kind of deal has been made with Russia to try to cool this thing out.
Yeah, well, that would be a positive step. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mean, I just don't think they're struggling to do to Assad what they did fairly easily to the rest of them. And Russia just don't seem to be budging when it comes to that. So, I mean, I hope you're right, Gerald, because as I say, I've just been, the more I look at this, it just seems very precarious. And, I just hope that we don't see an all-out World War III with the nukes and everything else in our lifetime, because... Again,
it's up to us, again, that's the end of the story for me. Is that we know what's going on. We need to rally around a cause, whether it's Occupy Peace or whatever anybody wants to do. If what was that Benjamin Franklin quote? If we don't hang together,
we'll perish apart, more or less.
We'll hang alone.
Listen, just very quickly, Gerald, the producer of the show said just to say hello. He's a big fan, and give out just quickly the Occupy Peace website.
Oh, it's occupypeace.us.
Okay.
Occupypeace.us. And our website for the Trends Journal is trendsresearch.com, trendsresearch.com. And, we know people are having a difficult time, so we have a discount request page. Try to make it available to everyone.
All right, wonderful. It's a pleasure as always, Gerald, and God bless you, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye.
listening to Revolution Radio.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning, warning.